After putting a new Jacobs chuck into my drill press, the tool became a lot more user-friendly once again and useful. The handle was lost a long time ago, and it was either a matter of spending $3 online to buy a new one or making one. So I took it upon myself to make a new handle. Going through the material I had on site here, I was thinking, how big did I actually want to make this? And I do got a couple nice rounds, one aluminum, one metal that or steel, I should say, that would be for gigantic handles. But I also still have that little piece down beside it there that was actually used for the spider on the lathe and also for the tool post top on the lathe. So I decided to use that, and of course we're back to the 4-jaw chuck here. And if you watch that gauge, like it is like really out. And again, sometimes I hit this like right on when I put the material in there, and sometimes it's chasing my tail around trying to get it to where it's usable. And this time it was actually, I think, within a minute or two, ready to be turned on the lathe. And as far as I'm concerned, the gauge at that point was reading good enough, and I was happy enough with it for the project I was doing here to not worry or have to worry at all about getting it any more centered than what it currently was. Once I got going, the first thing was to work on the end. Hindsight, on the other side of this piece of material, it was already drilled out in the center. I wish I would have used that side because I ended up drilling this out in the center as it is when I decided on what I was actually doing here. So my design idea here was to make a handle with like about a 30-degree taper on it that went down to a smaller dimension where it actually screwed onto the shaft that was coming out of the drill press. And then from there, I was just going to make a little handle to go inside to assist in turning it. And I wanted it to have a sheath over it. So when you held the sheath, it would not turn in your hand as you rotated the handle. For most of this, the work is becoming a lot easier, or at least I find it's becoming a lot easier for me now that I got a lot more time in on the lathe. Um, One thing with those tool holders I built in a previous video, I ordered some tools to go inside of them that take bigger um, inserts, and with the bigger inserts, it's going to be a nicer, smoother job than running with some of these smaller inserts as far as gouging and everything goes. On this one, I think it was about an hour or two, messing around with it until I pretty much got the dimensions that I actually wanted on this handle. There was one problem in particular that arose as I got going, and that was the clearance for the handle as I kept cutting smaller and smaller. However, the solution for that was very straightforward. I just had to move the tooling out a little bit and give myself some more clearance. Though doing so did also increase lack of rigidity on the tool itself. Though with this piece, it really didn't make that much difference. In the extension that it did have to come out to was not very extreme. I did make those the tool holders for 3/4 inch lathe tools, which I really look forward to coming. As you see here in the video, yeah, I just totally ran out of real estate. There was just no way I was getting any more passes out of that. I did have to extend it out a bit to be able to finish this part off. And again, back to the 3/4 inch tool, and it's going to make cleaner cuts with the larger stuff, and it's also going to be a lot more rigid than what I'm currently using. I'm sure some of the tooling I currently have shouldn't even be used on a lathe of this size. It's probably more of a hobby size lathe. So after everything was said and done, and I got the contour, and I kind of wanted on the outside, the next thing was going inside with drills, and then following that up with the bore and bar to to hog out as much material as I could before I got in there and actually did some cutting with one of the inserted tools. And when that was all done, I decided to use the hacksaw to cut this off. One of the projects I was doing just prior to this, I was using the the cutoff tool, and it actually broke the tool and went flying and gave me quite the jolt. And of course, now you can see it does actually fit on there, and it's just a matter of drilling a hole in the front side of it there, or the right side of it there for the handle, and also drilling another hole towards the back there to put a grub screw in to hold it secure when it's actually in place in its permanent new home. So this milling machine, sometimes I think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and sometimes I think it has a lot to be desired. When I was doing these holes, the one for the handle, piece of cake. I looked up the size of drill bit I needed. For the one for the grub screws, not so much so. The first drill bit that told me what I needed for grub screws, and I actually had to go back and remeasure the grub screws. I did not have it written on the bag what size they were, and that was a big mistake. So I do now have it written on the bag what size those screws are. So hopefully by the next time I use them, that the marker won't be missing, and I won't have to remeasure them again. So with the hole for the grub screws, I got the drill size off of a web page, and after drilling it, the tap just went right in with barely cutting any thread whatsoever. So what I ended up doing is just turning this piece about 90 degrees and cutting a hole that was 1.5 millimeters less than the current one, and that had no problem at all threading for that grub screw. After after getting these things threaded, the only thing left now is to actually make the handle part. And for this, I wanted a two-part handle. I wanted an inside screw that will be permanent to the wheel that's going to be on the machine. I also wanted a sleeve to go over this that will turn and when you turn in the crank, but not turn in your fingers. So the first attempt I did at this, I cut the end first, and then came in and threaded it, and then cut everything down to size, and made it an end that's going to be a little bigger, so it would not slip through the sleeve that's going on this thing. Unfortunately, this broke when I was just doing the final pass on it. It was like seconds away from parting it off on the lathe, and something caused it to snap. So I did have to make it again. The second time, as you can see here, I actually threaded it when it was already cut, and did use quite a bit of oil on there to make sure I was getting the less amount of pressure as possible when actually cutting the threads on here. The only thing after this was to part it off and get the slotting blade and cut a groove in it. Now, as you, I can see, the slotting blade here isn't really cutting all that accurate, and I'm rather disappointed with this, as I did buy this from a reputable machine shop sales place. The one that's in there currently, that little one, that's like a little $5 blade for a Dremel tool, and it worked way better than the slotting blade or the slotting R8 holder they had. Currently, we are, and when I say we, I mean myself and the person at that store, in discussions on what could possibly be wrong with this. And if you do know, let me know. But it's as tight as it can be screwed up into there. It's not loose in the quill whatsoever. So it's a little bit of mystery. I did a lot of measurements on that, and the only thing that seems a little odd is that slot on the side of the R8 attachment that kind of fits in that groove when it goes up might be a little short. So, nonetheless, to move on here, when I was doing this part, which is the outer sleeve, once again, I kind of reverted back to my old habits of holding the handle on the lathe with my couple fingers and my thumb, and instead of holding the little handle like the ones I'm making. I eventually will learn better or get over what I used to do. And once this was made, just a little bit of cleaning up with sandpaper, then a matter of parting it off. And I do have to say, it was probably one of the nice parting jobs I've ever done in my life because that thing's pretty much drilled right through to the point of, the thickness of 5 sheets of paper, if that. And I think the entire parting process, once that blade touched that steel, was maybe 5 seconds, 3 or 4 revolutions, and that thing came apart. And it looked quite good. From here is taken over to a belt sander and just cleaning a little bit up on the belt sander and taking any burrs off and chamfer it a bit and making sure it's flush and will not give me any headaches when I go to grab it later on in life with a sharp edge. Overall, the piece turned out really nice. I was really impressed with the taper on it and the overall look. Unfortunately, though, and the problem is going to manifest itself here pretty soon. It was a little bit too long, so it did have to go back and get trimmed down a bit. And the part that got trimmed was the taper part, and I lost most of the taper on it. But whatever, it's a handle on a drill press that's not going to be seen at all. The polishing, got everything polished, getting nice and pretty. But here's the point where I put that screw inside the sleeve and realized that it just doesn't come out the other end. So I had to take off about a quarter inch of that sleeve to make it work. And the second time around, it worked like magic. Just enough came through, but unfortunately, I don't know what happened to my brain at this stage in my life. But I did stop recording here pretty quick because I was just being a total idiot trying to get this thing put together. It just would not work whatsoever. Um, though as soon as I turned the camera off, thing went together no problem whatsoever. And then after that, also just getting that little grub screw in the side, and everything was good to go. Uh, here's we're down to the grub screw. Figured I'd just poke it in the end there. Hold, nope, that's not going to work. So I had to pick it up, put it in there, tighten it up a little bit, and now we're ready to put this thing onto the drill press. With the drill press, like I said earlier, it's a tool I haven't worked with for a long time because the Jacobs chuck I had in there was not good whatsoever and would not tighten up on bits. But now that I got a new Jacobs chuck in there, I figured it was time to put a handle back on there and give this drill press a second chance. And the press itself now is great. I just need a way to lift the deck up and down. I will have to go back and actually do some adjustment here and tighten some things up because you can see as I'm turning this, everything's turning. It's not sitting straight still. So that's going to be a project later on. And once that's done, I'm sure it's going to be just fine. And when I do use my thumb and just run it up there, it goes up just fine. So it's just a matter of tightening things up, and it's done.